So for today's class, we're doing, according to the packet, we're doing problems 9 through 12 on page 2. So I'm going to do problems 10, 11, 12, and leaving for you guys only have to do problem 9. All right, so moving on. Let's start with problem 10. But remember, you want to leave a little bit of space before for problem 9. Right, so we have 0 equals 10x squared minus 2x plus 3. And it goes in, right, this side equals 0, and it goes x squared, x number. So we're good just to figure out what our a, b, and c are, right? First number, second number, third number. And then we could plug it into the quadratic formula. I have x equals the opposite of negative 2, plus or minus negative 2 squared, minus 4 times 10 times 3 over 2 times 10. Right, the opposite of negative 2 is positive 2. Negative 2 squared is 4. And then 4 times 10 is 40. 40 times 3 is 120. And 2 times 10 is 20. So now to the next step, right? 4 minus 120. We could figure out what that is. So everything else stays the same, the 2 and the 20. 2 plus the square root of negative 116 over 20. Right, and now if you were to plug this into your calculator, you would get, right, an error because, right, you can't take the square root of a negative. So because this is a negative, we just get no solution. So that's all we have to do for problem 10. Since we see that we have no solution as of there, we do not have to do anything further. All right, so moving on to the next problem. We have x times negative 3x plus 5 equals 7x minus 10, right? So this problem, we got a lot to simplify, right? First, we got to distribute, right? And remember, whenever I distribute, I always use the generic rectangles, right? X is the length, negative 3x plus 5 is the width, x times negative 3x is negative 3x squared, x times 5 is 5x. Right, so this left side of the equation is just negative 3x squared plus 5x equals 7x minus 10. So let's move all of this stuff to the other side. So we're going to say minus 7x plus 10 on both sides. Right, so that way this will equal 0, this will equal 0. And then, right, we could combine the 5x and negative 7x, and we could add 10 on the end. So we get negative 3x squared, right? 5x minus 7x is negative 2x plus 10, and this side all equals 0. So now we could figure out what our a, b, and c are. Right, first number, second number, third number, because it goes in x squared, x constant order. So we have a is negative 3, b is negative 2, and c is 10. So now we have enough to plug it into our quadratic formula. You have x equals the opposite of negative 2, plus or minus negative 2 squared, minus 4 times negative 3 times 10 over 2 times negative 2. Right, so we have x equals the opposite of negative 2 is positive 2, plus or minus the square root, right, negative 2 squared is 4, and then 4 times negative 3 is negative 12, and negative 12 times 10 is negative 120. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Right, so now we could simplify this 2 plus or minus, right? We're going to be adding here because minus and negative. So it'll be 124 inside there. So now we're at the point where we could plug it into our calculator. Okay, so we could go to Desmos.com. And let's just plug it in, right? 2 plus the square root of 124. And remember, we want that to be all over -4. We want to do it again. We want to say 2 minus the square root of 124, right? Because this is plus or minus, so we got to do both. All over, oh, oops. So it should be over -6. All over -6. Right, so we have 1.52 and -2.19. Right, let me just make this quick adjustment. Right, our a value is -3. I accidentally put in -2. So the only thing that changes, right, this one was right. So, right, -4 becomes -6. -6. Oops. Yeah. So we see here that we got our answers. Right. -2.19, right, what we got the first time, and 1.52, what we got the second time. So we're done with the second problem, right? And if you don't even want to include the decimals, you want to leave your answer right here. This is actually more of a correct answer than the decimal approximation, right? Because this is exact, this is an approximation. So moving on to the next problem, right? First, we got to multiply these using our generic rectangle, move everything to the same side and make sure it's in the right order before we plug it in. So, right, our length is 5x plus 5, our width is x minus 5. X times 5x is 5x squared. -5 times 5x is -25x. X times 5 is 5x, and -5 times 5 is -25. So when we add them all together, right, I'm combining, we have the 5x squared minus 25, and right, -25x and positive 5x gives us -20x. Right, at this point, we could say -7x from both sides. So then we get 5x squared minus 27x minus 25 equals 0. So now we know what our A, B, and C are, right? 5, -27, -25. A is 5, B is -27, C is -25. So we could plug it into our quadratic formula. X equals the opposite of -27 plus or minus -27 squared minus 4 times 5 times -25 over 2 times 5. So the opposite of -27 is 27, right? Plus or minus the square root, -27 squared is 729, minus, right, 4 times 5 is 20, and 20 times -25 is -500. Right, 2 times 5 is 10. So now, right, combining the inside, we get 27, right, plus or minus the square root. Right, this becomes addition, so we get 1,229, right, all over 10. So now we're at the point where we could use our calculator. And let's let's start plugging in these values. Right, so we're going to say 27 plus the square root of 129. We're going to say all over 10, right, to get negative, or to get 6.20. Then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say 27 minus the square root of 1229 all over 10. We get negative 0.85. So, right, negative 6.21. We see here that, right, when we round our two answers, right, this becomes 6.21, this becomes negative 0.81. And we have our answers. But remember, if you want to leave your answer just right here, that's totally fine too. The decimal approximation is optional. So with that said, all you guys have to do is, what is it? Problem 9. And, yeah, no Khan Academy work, so just problem 9 for today.